Welcome to Lento English. Ready to level up your English? Here we learn through stories, slow, clear, and fun. Listen, relax, and enjoy the journey.
1. Introduction. Public opinion is important in a country. It means what many people think about a person or a topic. In the United States, Donald Trump is the president. He is serving his second time in this important job. Many people are interested in knowing if the public likes the president's work. This is often shown by public approval ratings. Public approval ratings are numbers. They come from asking many people questions. For example, a study might ask, "Do you approve or disapprove of the job President Trump is doing?" The answers are counted. Then we see a percentage of people who approve and a percentage who disapprove. These numbers help us understand how people feel about the president's performance. They are like a picture of public feeling at one moment. Approval ratings can change. Important events in the country or the world can make people think differently. Recently, something important happened. The United States military made strikes in Iran. This was a big event on the world stage. After events like this, people often look closely at the approval ratings. They want to see if the event changed how people feel about the president's decisions and leadership. This story will explore public opinion about President Trump during a recent period. We will look at what different studies found. We will see numbers that show how people felt about the president's work after the strikes in Iran. We will also look at opinions on other important topics. These include things happening inside the country, like the economy and also world matters. The goal is to show you the numbers and information from these studies. We want to present a picture of public feeling. We will try to show this information in a clear way. We will not say if the opinions are right or wrong. We will just report what the studies found. Understanding public opinion helps us understand the country. It shows us what matters to people. We will look at numbers from different groups who do these studies. Sometimes their numbers are a little different, and we will see examples of this. We will also think about why these numbers might be different or why they might change over time. This first part introduces the idea of public opinion and why we are looking at it. We are focusing on public opinion about President Trump in his second term, especially around the time of the strikes in Iran. We will use the information from studies to see how people felt about his job. It is a way to see the feelings of many people, shown in numbers. We will start by looking at the general picture and then look at more details in the next parts of this story. We will explore different views and numbers neutrally. The aim is to understand how public feeling shifts and how it is measured by these studies. We will present the information directly, without adding personal opinions. This introduction sets the scene for looking at the numbers and understanding what they mean about the public's view of the president. We will see how different events and topics connect to how people feel about the president's work. The following chapters will provide more specific details and numbers from different studies. This first chapter explains what public opinion is and why it is interesting to study, especially for a president. It also mentions the recent strikes in Iran as an event that might have influenced public feeling. Our journey will be to look at the facts presented by the studies and see what picture they paint of public sentiment at this time. It is important to remember that these numbers are just a moment in time, a snapshot of feelings. Public opinion can continue to change as new events happen and as time passes. But by looking at these numbers, we can get a better idea of what people were thinking and feeling recently. This story will guide you through the information collected by different groups who study public opinion. We will see how the president's approval rating looked and how it was connected to specific issues and events. This chapter is the beginning of that exploration. 2. Iran strikes and first views. The United States took action in Iran. This event was important and many people paid attention. After these actions happened, people in the United States began to think about the president's work. Polls are tools used to ask many people questions. They help us understand what the public thinks about different things. Soon after the strikes in Iran, the first polls were conducted. These polls aimed to see how the recent events might have changed how people felt about the president's job performance. One poll asked people if they approved of the president's work. The results showed that about 41% of the people who were asked approved. This number was a little lower than what some other polls had shown earlier in the month of June. Before these specific events, approval numbers were sometimes around 45%. Another poll also found that about 41% of people approved of the president's job performance. This poll also asked people if they disapproved. It showed that 54% of people did not approve of his work. This same poll had asked people the same questions just a few weeks before the strikes took place. In that earlier poll, about 38% of people approved of the president's work. 54% disapproved. So when we compare the two times, the approval number went up slightly, from 38% to 41% after the strikes. However, the number of people who disapproved stayed exactly the same at 54%. This meant that more than half of the people in this poll still did not approve of the president's work. Another survey focused specifically on the public's feeling about the strikes in Iran themselves. This survey found that a majority of Americans, meaning more than half of the people, did not approve of the United States taking these military actions in Iran. These first polls right after the events in Iran gave an important early look at public opinion. They showed that the strikes were a significant moment that likely influenced how people felt about the president and his actions. The numbers from these polls suggested that while some people approved of the president's overall job performance, a larger number did not approve. The 41% approval and 54% disapproval numbers painted a picture of public sentiment immediately following the strikes. These initial views were important for understanding the public feeling at that specific time. The results indicated that public opinion was divided, with a notable portion expressing disapproval of the president's work after the actions in Iran. These early polls provided the first data points on how the public reacted. 3. Views on home issues. People in a country care about many things that happen close to home. These are called domestic issues. Two very important domestic issues are the economy and trade. The economy is about jobs, money, and how businesses are doing. Trade is about how the country buys and sells things with other countries. When people think about how the president is doing his job, they look closely at these home issues. Recent information shows how people feel about the president's work on the economy and trade. For many people, the feeling is not positive. They do not approve of how things are going in these areas. This feeling of not approving is shown in surveys. For example, one survey asked people how they feel about the president's handling of the economy. The number of people who disapprove is much higher than the number who approve. This difference is quite large, reaching -17 points. This number, -17, tells us that many more people feel unhappy than happy with the economy under the president. The same survey also looked at people's views on trade. Trade is important because it affects prices and jobs. On the issue of trade, people also showed strong negative feelings. Their disapproval was also very high, reaching -17 points. Like with the economy, this -17 number shows that a large number of people do not approve of how trade is being handled. These negative feelings about the economy and trade are part of how people see the president's work on important issues inside the country. The numbers show that on these two key home topics, many people are not satisfied. Their views on these domestic matters are clear. They show a strong sense of disapproval regarding both the economy and trade. This feeling is important because these issues touch the daily lives of many people. How people feel about these home issues is a big part of their overall view of the president's job performance. The negative numbers for both the economy and trade highlight this feeling of unhappiness among many people. 4. Immigration matters. Immigration is an important topic for many people in the United States. People have different ideas about how the government should handle it. This chapter looks at what people think about immigration policies and related issues based on recent information. One part of immigration policy is deporting people. This means sending people who do not have legal papers back to their home countries. People were asked how they feel about the way deportations are handled. The numbers show that more people disapprove than approve. A number used to show this is -20. This number is lower than it was earlier in the month. Before, it was -16. This suggests more people now feel unhappy with how deportations are handled. Looking at immigration policies in general, people also have clear views. The numbers show that more people disapprove of the overall immigration policies than approve. The number that represents this feeling is -16. This number is also lower than it was earlier. Before, it was -11. This shows that for immigration as a whole, many people do not agree with the current way things are done. Immigration is a key issue for the government and the public. There is a government group called Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. This group works on enforcing immigration laws. People were asked if they approve or disapprove of how ICE does its job. 56% of people said they disapprove. This means more than half of the people asked do not like how ICE works. 39% of people said they approve. These numbers show that the public view of this agency is mostly negative. A big question is what should happen to the many immigrants who live in the United States without legal papers. People were given two main choices. One choice was to give most of these immigrants a way to get legal status, meaning they could stay legally. 64% of people chose this idea. This is almost two-thirds of the people asked. The other choice was to send most of these immigrants away from the country, to deport them. 31% of people chose this idea. These numbers show that most people prefer a pathway to legal status over deportation for these immigrants. These findings show that public opinion on immigration is complex. People have negative views on how deportations and overall policies are handled. They also show a strong preference for a pathway to legal status for undocumented immigrants and disapproval for the agency ICE. Immigration continues to be a key issue with different ideas among the public. 5. World events and ratings. People look at what happens in the world. They think about how the president works with other countries. This is called foreign policy. People have different ideas about the best way to do this work. Surveys ask people about the president's foreign policy. The numbers show how people feel. One survey found that more people disapprove than approve of his foreign policy. The difference was 14 points negative. This means many people do not like how he handles things with other countries. Military matters are also important. This is about the country's defense and its soldiers. People have ideas about how strong the military should be and how it should be used. Surveys also ask about this. One survey showed that people approve less than they disapprove of how the president handles military affairs. The difference was 4 points negative. This number is not as low as for foreign policy, but it is still negative. Foreign policy is about keeping the country safe and having good relationships with other nations. It includes things like making agreements, talking with leaders from other countries, and deciding when to help or not help other places. When people see problems in the world, they often look to their president to solve them or protect the country from them. The negative 14 rating suggests that many people feel the president is not doing a good job protecting the country's interests or building strong relationships. Military affairs include decisions about the size of the military, where soldiers go, and how money is spent on defense. It is also about using the military in times of trouble. A negative 4 rating for military affairs is less negative than for foreign policy, but it still shows that some people are unhappy with how the military is managed or used. There are many events happening in the world. One example is the problem between Israel and Iran. This is a difficult situation far away. People in the country watch these events. They think about how the president deals with them. Surveys asked people about how the president handles the Israel-Iran conflict. The numbers show that many people do not approve of his work here. The difference between approval and disapproval was 14 points negative. This is the same number as for foreign policy in general. It shows that this specific problem is important to people and affects their view of the president's job. Views on world events are part of the bigger picture. People think about many things when they decide if they approve of the president. They think about things happening inside the country, like jobs and money. They also think about things happening outside the country. How the president works with other countries, handles the military, and deals with conflicts like the one between Israel and Iran are all important parts of his job. Public opinion on these matters adds to his total approval rating. When people disapprove of his work in these areas, it makes his overall approval rating lower. Different world events can change how people feel. If something big happens in another country, people might change their opinion about the president's foreign policy skills. It is important to look at these different parts of his job to understand why his overall approval rating is high or low. The numbers for foreign policy, military matters, and specific conflicts like Israel and Iran show that these areas are challenges for the president in terms of public support. People are watching and giving their opinions through these surveys. 6. Many polls, different numbers. Many groups want to know what people think about the president. They do this by asking questions to many people across the country. This is called taking a public opinion poll. Polls are used to measure how people feel about the president's job performance. They help us understand what the public generally thinks. When different groups do polls at similar times, they often get different numbers. The percentage of people who say they approve of the president's job can be quite different from one poll to another. This shows that getting a single number for public opinion is not always easy. Let's look at some examples from recent polls to see these differences. One poll was done by a group called Gallup. In their poll, 40% of people said they approved of the president's job. 57% said they did not approve. Another poll came from YouGov and The Economist magazine. Their numbers showed 40% approved and 54% did not approve. Ipsos and Reuters also worked together on a poll. In their poll, 41% of people approved. 57% said they did not approve. The American Research Group had different numbers. Their poll showed 38% approved and 59% did not approve. These numbers showed lower approval and higher disapproval than some other polls. A poll by the Bulfinch Group showed 41% approval and 54% disapproval. Morning Consult also took a poll. Their numbers were a bit higher than some others. 45% approved and 53% did not approve. Some polls showed even higher numbers for approval, giving a different view. For example, a poll by RMG Research showed 53% approval and 46% disapproval. Another poll by the Trafalgar Group showed 54% approved and 45% did not approve. This poll showed more people approved than disapproved. So, we can see a wide range of numbers when we look at different polls. Some polls show approval below 40%. Others show approval above 50%. This big difference happens because each poll asks different people. They might also ask questions in slightly different ways or at slightly different times. Looking at many different polls helps us see this range of public feeling. It shows that public opinion is not always one clear number. By looking at results from many different groups, we get a more complete picture. It helps us understand the different views that people hold about the president's work. This is why looking at many polls is important. 7. Why numbers change. We have seen that different polls can show different numbers for the president's approval rating. This is normal. Also, the numbers can change over time. they do not always stay the same. In recent times, some polls showed the president's approval rating going down. This means fewer people said they approved of his job, but not all polls showed this trend. Some polls showed the approval rating staying about the same. For example, one poll showed 41% approval in 1 week, and in a newer poll from the same group, it was still 41%. This shows stability in that specific survey. Other polls showed the number going up a little. One poll showed 53% approval in one survey. Another poll from a different group showed 54% approval. So we see different trends happening at the same time depending on which poll we look at. Why do these numbers move? Why are they different in different polls? Many things can make the numbers change or be different between surveys. First, different polls ask different groups of people. When a poll is done, they talk to a sample. This is a small group of people chosen to represent the bigger population of the country. Different polls pick different samples using different methods. This is one important reason why one poll might show 40% approval and another shows 41%. The groups of people they talked to were different. Second, important events can happen. Sometimes big things happen in the world or in the country. These events can be about the economy, foreign countries, or other important topics. When something important happens, people might think differently about the president's work. Their opinion can change because of the news or the event itself. This can make the numbers change from 1 week to the next in the same poll. Third, polls use samples, so the numbers they get are estimates. Polls have something called a margin of error. This margin of error means the real number for the whole population could be a few points higher or a few points lower than the poll result. For example, if a poll says 40% approval with a margin of error of 3 points, the real number for everyone could be anywhere between 37% and 43%. Small differences between different polls, like one showing 40% and another showing 41%, might just be because of this margin of error. So the numbers in public opinion polls change and differ for several reasons. They change over time because people's opinions change, often due to new events. They differ from one poll to another because different groups of people are asked, and because of the natural margin of error in using samples. Understanding these points helps us understand what the numbers mean. The numbers try to show how people feel about the president's job and how people feel can change. 8. The main lesson. We have looked at many numbers in this story. These numbers come from asking people questions about how they feel. We saw numbers about how people feel about the president's work. On many important topics, more people did not approve than approved. For example, on sending people away, many people did not like the way it was done. On money matters and business with other countries, people also showed low approval. How the president worked with other countries and on fighting also had low approval numbers from many people. These are important issues for the country and the world. We looked at results from different groups who ask these questions. These are called polls. Some polls showed low approval numbers for the president. For example, some polls showed approval around 40% or even lower, like 38%. Disapproval in these polls was often higher, sometimes around 54% or 57%, or even 59%. These numbers mean that many people were unhappy with the president's job on these specific issues and overall. However, we also saw that different polls gave different numbers. Not all polls showed low approval. Some polls showed approval numbers that were higher, like 53% or 54%. This tells us something important. Public opinion is not always the same everywhere or all the time. Different groups ask questions in different ways, and different people have different ideas and feelings. The numbers we see from polls give us a picture, but it is a picture with many colors. It shows that many people had concerns about the president's work on several big issues. But it also shows that many people approved of his work. The main lesson is that understanding how a large group of people feels is not simple. We use numbers from polls to try and understand. These numbers can change. They can be different depending on who you ask and how you ask. Looking at many different numbers helps us see a bigger picture. It shows that public feeling is always moving and changing. It is like looking at a large river. It has many parts and flows in different ways. The numbers help us see the different flows of public feeling about the president. We saw that on home issues like the economy and immigration, many people were unhappy. On world issues like foreign policy, many people also showed disapproval. But overall approval numbers were different in different polls. Some showed more disapproval, some showed more approval. This story looked at these numbers neutrally. The lesson is about how we measure public feeling. It uses polls to get numbers. These numbers show different opinions existing at the same time. It is important to look at many sources to get a full idea. Public opinion is complex and has many different parts. This chapter concludes our look at these numbers and what they might tell us about public feeling during this time.